Hello, guys. David Vos here. Beautiful day here in Oklahoma. Clouds are coming over a little bit, and it's cool. And it sprinkled a little bit last night. So I hope you're having a wonderful day where you are. We're going to do another video about, I guess it's like the third one now. We're discussing astrology. And we're not just discussing astrology. If you go on the web or read a book about astrology, you're going to get some very vague stuff. And a lot of you are reading vague stuff and you don't know the history or the meaning of astrology or why it would work, but you really believe it. And you're using it. Now, don't click off if you like astrology and you use it, because this video is going to show you how to actually use astrology and show you the actual history and meaning of astrology and what it really is. Because, and I imagine we may have to go another video or two to really fully grasp this, and probably a lot more, because like I said, we want to talk about numerology, gematria, the whole science, numbers, and why the numbers mean what they mean. We've gone through some of this in videos. I mean, we've gone deep. I think we've got a real good prelude and a base of knowledge for a lot of my friends that watch, have been watching for a long time. We've built up a good foundation for what we're believing, what the world really is. How does that then correlate with this astrology? And, and can you tell your fortune? Can you tell anything about yourself? Can you know if you're going to get money or love or power or something? Well, that's what we're going to get into. Look at that picture. You'll see that there is 12 signs around a circle. And you see that angle there, that little pie, piece of the pie that's got lines going out showing you the shape of that piece of pie. That would be one of the houses. There are 12. It's not some arbitrary thing. I mean, who in the world, way back thousands of years ago, would have come up with some circle and put a bunch of numbers and all this? I mean, we're talking about Pythagoras, who came and learned from the great sages and the pharaonic priesthood, the secrets, the mysteries that Jesus quoted from when he quoted the Pythagorean theorem in the scriptures about the fish. Because Pythagoras had, he invented geometry, they say, right? And Newton invented calculus. They didn't really invent any of this stuff. This is the ancient mysteries. They used this science to try and relearn or remember. So what Pythagoras knew was what that's as far as he could get in the great mysteries. We don't know everything he knew, but he knew quite a bit. And he had many students, disciples. Jesus had disciples. He seemed to know everything, because prophecy said one would come who would be able to reveal the meaning of all of these mysteries. And so written in the New Testament is really an expose of all of the mysteries. But it all goes back to ancient Egyptian temples. We said that, Joseph went down into Egypt first. His brothers, the 12, right? They sold him. Well, that represents our journey, all of us, down through the astrological wheel. Because remember, that was the hub. That place there where the temple was built is the geographical center. And Moses led them around 360 degrees for 40 years, and that comes out 144,000. So if you count the people from Genesis, you get all these characters. We call them patriarchs. And you'll find that there are some curious things. We said yesterday, and I think we've been talking about this, how Noah is that word that's come down to us that comes also from the same root as An or Anu. Noah has the same consonants. They didn't have vowels, so sometimes they get changed around, letters change around as it goes down through languages. But Noah was the one who had these three sons who divided up the world. That's the same as Anu, who had the three sons, Enki, Ea, Enki, and Enlil, and Ershkigal, which, and sometimes in later manuscripts, or sometimes they call him Nergal. So, well, there's some dispute, different deities at different times and stuff. But the point is that Anu split up the entire world, like as a clock or as in time. All these words have to do with time. Anu is where we get the word annual. And in Greek, it's chronology or chronos. So Chronos was, he had 12 sons. Well, this is the 12 houses. So in our Bible, we have the same thing. We have Abraham. We start off with Noah, who is Anu, and he has these three kids, and the earth was divided. Well, it wasn't really just divided into three. It was divided into 12. It was divided into 72. Deuteronomy 33:8 or something like that talks about the Most High who divided the world and the 72 gods. It says that more clearly in the Septuagint version. So he divided up the world, and Yahweh's portion was that of his people, the Judeans. So the rest of the world was 72 souls came out of the loins of Jacob. So the entire world is Israel. So in coming down to that, what we have is Anu, who was considered a deity in the writings of the Sumerians, the Babylonians. They had different names, but in the Bible, he's just some guy. Well, so there's a whole lot in there that we have not yet explained or understood. We're taking all this literal. Notice that Enoch is the seventh in line from Adam. Why is he the seventh in line? Because there were the original 7 deities, or the planets. There were 7 planets. And if you count the patriarchs all the way down to Jacob, you get 24. And those were the 24. And then the first 7 are higher than the 24. And then the top 3 work like a council. And these are the 3 we're talking about. Now in Greek, it's Zeus, and who had the thunderbolt, was over the sky, and Poseidon had the trident over the ocean, and Hades was over the hell or the abyss, and he had the keys. We see that in Revelation chapter 9 with Abaddon or Apollyon, which again is another play, a Greek word. Apollyon means the god of destruction down there in the abyss. But that goes all the way back to Sumerians, who also had a deity they called Apula. At certain times, their names would change. They had different stories. Sometimes they called him Apula. And Apula became the Pluto for the Latins, and the Greeks Apollio. So he was the god of destruction, had the keys to the abyss. Well, there's really a division, like I say, of 12 and 72. In astrology, you have 72 deacons. Funny, we call those, when Jesus chose 12, and it says, and 72 also. And he called them deacons. So, there's definitely a correlation here. But what we're finding, what we're going to find is that, well, look at the book of, I think it's in Matthew, where it says there were 14 generations from Abraham to David. And then from David to the deportation of the Jewish people to Babylon was another 14 generations, it says. And then from the deportation to Babylon unto the Christ was 14 generations. Now, why do you suppose there was 14 generations 3 different times? Well, if you do a little mathematical formulations and you find out, well, people say that Babylon fell, Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians in 587. Well, those 14 generations, if you were to divide that into 588, and I'll tell you why 588. Remember, Babylon was destroyed in 587. 588, because there's no year 0, you get an exact 42. Now, remember, the Bible's always talking about the 42 months, the 1,260 days, and the times and a half a time. So it's called 42 months. Why would they be months? Well, they're not actual months of 30 days. It's the astrological calendar. And remember, there are 30 degrees in each of these houses. There are 30 degrees. So this has to do with numerology and gematria. There's a lot more to the Bible than most people have ever imagined. So 588 years, divide 42, you get 14 generations. So each generation was like 42 years. Now, do that again, because remember, it was 14 generations from Christ to the deportation to Babylon. Now go back another 588 years, and you come out to 1760 or 80 or whatever it is, 60 something. And that is just, as far as we know, it's almost exactly correct. You've got 14 generations, 14 generations, and 14 generations, each being 42 years, and each one being 588 years. So 588 times 3 is 1,764. And that comes out to Abraham. Now, why doesn't he continue to say, okay, and there was 14 generations from Abraham back to whatever, some other person? Because I believe if you count up from Adam to Enoch, you get 7. You count from Adam to Jacob, and then you get 24. And at that point, Jacob has 12 sons. And they go and they become 12 tribes, with each having 12,000 each. And there's the 144,000. This all has to do with the astrology. And so when they divided up our world, they didn't divide it up the way we think. They divided up the universe into the heavens and the earth and the sea. And there were other divisions. But these stories are talking about the gods, the chronology, the time, astrology. And so, there's all kinds of clues. Like, for instance, Enoch lived 365 years, and then he was not, for the Lord took him. Well, that's 1 year, right, in days, but he lived 365 years. So it's a symbol for that being one entire revolution. See, I don't believe that Adam was made 4,000 years ago. Now, I do believe that the flood probably occurred 4,000 BC, because that would be 2 aeons, each is 2,000 years. And, if Christ died on March 21st, on Passover time, at this vernal equinox, then you would have to go all the way back through Aries, and then through Pisces, and that would come out to Aquarius, which is the great water. And that was the flood. And that's the time, as we said, January, Oannes, who was the deity, or Anu. And that would be Noah. And Noah had a boat, and they all went through the boat, and they were saved by water, which is baptism. And the earth that is now is being reserved for fire. So there's a lot more, and we won't get into any more of that in this video, because what I get into today, that's just kind of a sort of a preliminary concepts that we're going to throw out there to show that this Old Testament is talking about astrology and times and history in a way that we did not know. Noah is something far different than what we thought. And Shem, Ham, and Japheth are the divisions of our very reality. And it's really true, because somehow or another, we calculate all these people all the way back to this Noah. And in Sumerian tablets, they go back to Anu and his 3 sons. And remember, in Egypt, there was a place that today we call Heliopolis. Well, it was leveled by Alexander the Great in 330 BC. But they named it Heliopolis because that's a Greek word, Helios, for the sun. But it was the temple of Ra. And in the Bible, that's where Joseph went down and married Potiphar's daughter. Okay, the the temple at On, or An. Now, why is this temple named An, or Anu? Because this was the lineal descent of Noah. And friends, Noah lived at the center of the geographical center of the earth. And that is where the Great Pyramid is. And below that Great Pyramid, there are great mysteries. But you see, the kings of the world were royal bloodlines. And these royal bloodlines, all of them go back to the gods. Whether you're in Rome or you're Romulus, or Cyrus the Great or Alexander, they all believe they went back to the deities. Their lineage was royal. Now, where would they get that? Well, they got that from the same place the Babylonians got their idea, same place that the Egyptians got their idea, that the pharaohs went back to An, or Anu, the temple of Anu, and they were direct descendants, the pharaohs, the house of God. That's what that word means. Well, they're tracing it back to Noah. And so Joseph then, when he went down into Egypt, of course he became Pharaoh. Because remember, when Abraham went there, he went up on that mountain and he said, look eastward, northward, westward, southward, and all the land that you see, I will give it to thee. From the river Nile, beyond the river Nile, all the way beyond the river Euphrates. Every place that your foot has walked. He wasn't talking about this little piece of land over there we call Palestine today. He was talking about the entire world. And so the center of all the entire world was there at the Great Pyramid. And that nation he was talking about that he could see was beyond, on both sides of the Nile, which is all of Africa. And all the way up on both sides of the Tigris, and all the way over to the Euphrates. And on the other side of the Euphrates. And these were all the children of Noah. And they divided up the world. And so we have the story of this Tower of Babel, because mankind were all one. They were all living together and unified. And it was a man named Nimrod. Who was Nimrod? Well, Solomon had 1,000 wives, and he married the Queen of Sheba, So the Midrash, the Jewish Midrash, tells us that Solomon had a child we had many children. They all went forth and became the royal bloodlines. The scepter will not depart from Judah until he who comes who has the legal right. And so Judah then had children, and this came down to David, King David, and David's son was Solomon. Remember, David himself married Bathsheba, which is the daughter of Sheba, the house of Sheba. And Solomon married the Queen of Sheba. So the Midrash says that child then went back with his mother, and they ruled over Babylon. And his name was Nebuchadnezzar. Well, Nebuchadnezzar could directly trace his lineal descent not only through Solomon, through David, and back to Noah, but also, remember, Nimrod it's just a rearranging of the letters of Marduk. Marduk. You can also get Mars from that, but you got the Nimrod. There's a D in there, there's an R in there, there's an N in there. Nimrod. It's the same word. It's just every language has come down to us with different spellings from the original roots. Nimrod was Marduk, and Anu was Noah. And so Marduk was the son of Anu, he was the son of Ea Enki, and Ea Enki was the son of Anu. So this tells you the lineal descendants that thought they were the royal bloodlines, they go back to the gods. And who is the gods? Noah. And who is Noah? Well, he was the one that was down at the bottom of the wheel. We went through Aquarius and Pisces, the flood. And we were baptized into those individuals at the bottom of the wheel. And now we're going to be baptized into Christ. So this is all fits like a glove. All the ancient narrations and the esoteric wisdom in every nation fits with the Bible. So, the point we're trying to make here is that the scripture and all esoteric wisdom, mythology about Zeus and the river Styx and the Elysian Islands, Tartarus, where the Titans were thrown. It's the same story in our Bible about the angels were thrown into the Tartarus. It's in Peter and Jude. And the place that Lazarus went, Osiris, who is the Egyptian Osiris, who died and was resurrected on the horizon. And so the rich man went unto Tartarus and lifted up his eyes in torment. But he saw Osiris across the gorge, the chasm, the river Styx, eating and drinking with Abraham in his kingdom. This was the story of the Egyptian, what we call Egyptian mythology, but it was the story that was written in the stars so that we would never forget it, and it was also written in the Bible. Now, we were talking yesterday and the day before about this astrology. We're talking about being born at the bottom of the wheel. There's a lot of kind of dark forces down there. Remember, that's darkness. And then at the top of the wheel, we got all this light, right? And we were talking about how it's all upside down and backwards. If you look at all the astrological wheels, go on the internet and type in astrological chart or wheel, and you always see these round circles with all the houses and everything's upside down. They have winter going up into the sky, and they have summer going down. The summer side, Leo's on the bottom and Aquarius is on the top, which is just not correct, because we know that the top is heaven, high. That's what the word means, heave, up. Anu is in the sky, and the sun is in the sky. And the bottomless pit is blackness and dark. The darkness is upon the deep. The abyssios, the absu, and Tiamat, time, which that chaotic situation ruled. In our Bibles, it's Behemoth and Tihom. And these have to do with the hippopotamuses. And Tiamat has to do with alligators, crocodiles, I guess. Because those are animals that was down in Egypt. This came from Egypt. All of this mythology came from Egypt. You look in the sky and you see these great dragons in the sky, and you see this is where astrology came from. And it was given to mankind, and they made a temple. And that's the Great Pyramid, which the Bible says in Isaiah is a monument unto the Lord. It was always called the Pillar of Enoch, who was the one who went unto heaven and got the mysteries. It's even written in the Sumerian tablets. Look at the book of Gilgamesh. So, all of these stories are worldwide. Now, we were talking about how it's all upside down and backwards, and so they've done this to hide this information from us. They divided our languages so we don't know who the gods are. And then the book that we have, the Old Testament and the New Testament, is written as though it's a story that is just a simple, logical history. And it is. We go back to the deities. This is real. And this is the tribe of Judah, the Bible saying that the scepter will not depart from. And they lived at the bottom of the wheel. They were the southern tribes. So all the other tribes were all around 360 degrees, 12,000 from each tribe. Ultimately, this wheel goes forward until one day in the book of Revelation, it says, "Who are these, my Lord?" It says, "This is a great multitude." The nations, which come out of all nations, tribes, tongues, and they'll serve the Lord and get their white robes, and they're got palm branches, and they're saying, "Holy, holy, holy." This is the surprise, the seed of the woman. A prophecy all the way back from Genesis 3:15. But there's more. About the time of the Catholic Church, we said the other day in 553 or 543, Justinian made an edict as the Emperor of Rome and declared a Christian emperor who said, no more will be allowed to teach reincarnation. We're hiding that. It's forbidden. So before that, the church fathers taught reincarnation. Read Origen. He explains it even down, very detailed information, even like transmigration. It was written in the ancient scriptures, but in 325, they threw out many of those ancient scriptures. So we don't have those. All we've got is these parables, and people have defined these parables to us in a way in which we can't understand it. So astrology and reincarnation, the wheel of rebirth, it's all in the scriptures. That's why Gilgal in the Old Testament was right after they crossed the Jordan River. That's where everybody got baptized. That's where Jesus was being baptized. That Jordan River is the same river that Jesus was talking about, the gorge that separates paradise from Tartarus, because it represented the Milky Way. And Nibiru is just a ferry that brings the souls. That's Jupiter. Now, why would Jupiter be the ferry? Because Jupiter goes around the sun, and from the point of view of Earth, when you look at Jupiter in the sky, it goes around every 12 years. So therefore, they said that Jupiter was the man who stood and guarded the souls and was over these individuals coming into this incarnation. It all had to do with your soul coming in, the stars going around and dying on the dark side of the wheel and being reborn on the top side of the wheel. And astrology was about that. Our destiny. And the gods, they controlled that destiny. So Jupiter had, there's rings around it. So it was a winged disk. They considered it some sort of a winged flying thing. Today, all this talk about Nibiru, which comes from that Sumerian word, Nippur, and the city of Nippur. And that is where we get Nibiru, which is also where we get Jupiter. And so it was considered the deity who guarded the souls and each of the 12 houses. So every year he would go and transition into a different house. And of course, he gave power and wisdom. Because of his winged disc, they considered him a great eagle or a bird or wisdom. Now, there were two of these winged discs in the sky. One brought wisdom and power and authority, and that was Jupiter. But there was the other deity that was a little further out that they called Saturn. It also had a disc. Now, they couldn't see any of the planets beyond that. They couldn't see with the naked eye or with the means in which, mankind had. They could not see Uranus or Pluto or Neptune or any of those other planets. But they could see the 7 planets that would be the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Those were the 7 planets. So the Sun was at the head, and the planet Saturn was at the tail. It gave that serpent its wings. So remember, the 7th in line from Adam was Enoch. And those were the 7 deities that ruled the entire astrological circle. So they had power. Now, one of these deities was Zeus or Jupiter. Latin is Jupiter. Back in the days of Babylon, they called it Nippur or Nibiru. Now, they considered it a type of fairy to ferry the souls. Although, of course, in Greek we have Cheiron, but there's, these parables don't always coincide exactly. It's possible that Cheiron would bring the souls on a boat down the river and drop them off. And so Jupiter was considered like a post. He would deliver the souls to Jupiter, and Jupiter was in control of your soul, therefore your destiny. Now, there was a different sort of wisdom or of sorts that Saturn would bring. That was that deity, Ea Inki. And so that is Yahweh in our scriptures. And he was over the deep, the underworld. He was the God who ruled, more or less, the father of the Abyssios is what they would call him. And so he brought form. He brought knowledge and law. He had the tablets of the law. And So there was a type of knowledge that he brought that brought governmental form and power. It was a little different kind of knowledge. So when you look up in the sky and you see that Saturn is in one particular house, then you knew that that in that area there would be your form, the government, the structure of your life. If you were to look at where Jupiter was in your chart, if you looked at where Jupiter was on your astrological chart, that is where you would have wisdom. And by means of drawing squares and triangles and lines, one was able to determine how much of an influence that particular planet had on you. So they would take the time that you were born, the exact moment and time that you were born, and that would be your house that you were born in. Now, here's something that, remember what we were saying, everything's backwards and upside down, so people don't know what they're doing. So, if somebody was born then down there in the bottom of the wheel, say Capricorn, that's where the devil reigns, right? And Saturn rules over Aquarius and Capricorn. Well, does that mean if you're born in that area, then you're just doomed? Your entire life is going to be ruled by devils and forces of bad and evil? Absolutely not. That's not what this is about. Because you see, we all share in all 12 of these houses and these forces. Because it isn't just where your sun is when you were born, but also where all the planets are when you're born. And here's another thing that you're never told when you go and do your astrological work. If you're, let's say, remember, now I was born in August, so my sign, the house I was born in, was Leo, but I was born on the 21st. That is the last day of Leo. So they say I'm born on the cusp. Well, that means that after a very short time after I was born, my sun sign moved into a different house. And so, because it takes you go every 30 years, just about 30 years, you move from one house to the other because of the movement of the stars. So what that means is that if you were born in one house, 30 years later, you're now getting the energies of the house after the one you were born in. So since I was born on the cusp, most of my growing up years, I was actually a Virgo and not a Leo. I was born with those energies and those challenges and those gifts. But I progress. It isn't stationary. So I began to progress in life, and the trajectory is forward. So I went then to Virgo for the next 30 years of my life. Once I reached the age of around 30, I didn't stay in Virgo anymore. I went to Libra. And so for the last part of my life, I've been a Libra. Now, if you went to an astrologist, they would never tell you that. So to say, oh, you were born at the bottom of the wheel, it's all darkness for you, you're always transitioning and you're always moving. Everybody's going to experience all of these forces. But you see, it isn't just that. Remember what we said. Jupiter goes around every 12 years, and that is that wisdom. And so every 12 years, you're going to grow in wisdom. You're going to have a transition, because every 12 years, that planet's going to move into a different house. And so the same about form, or the ruling lustful. Remember, it was lust that brought you into form. It's desire. It's those lower energies that is represented by Saturn. So when you see that Saturn, now it goes around every 28 years. So it mimics real closely what the sun does. In other words, it transitions or changes every 28 or 30 years, somewhere around there. So you're dealing with a complete change, a complete change. The form and all the structure of your life will change every 28 years. So wherever you're born, you might go through if you live to be 90, you might go through 3 different changes. Well, most people aren't born at the beginning of their sign. If you're born sometime after the half part of your sign, you've only got half of that, 15 years to go. And then you go into another sign. And then you spend 28, 30 years there. And you spend another 30 years. So if you live to be 100, you might go through 4 different signs. If you leave, depending on how long you lived. So there are certain forms or structures that will be in your life based on the fact that when you were born, you had certain energies you were dealing with that are going to change. Now, the planets that are closer to us, they're going to affect us much more. So those are planets like Mercury and Venus and Mars. Mars is the god of war. And so these planets just take 2 or 3 years to go. It doesn't take long. So we're constantly transitioning. So whatever house you're in, you're still transitioning with all of these qualities. So really, the house that you're born in isn't even the most important thing. But remember, everybody in their lifetime is going to go through all of these transitions and all of these variables, their mental powers, their loving, romantic situations, their fortune's going to change. And you have an opportunity not to be controlled by these forces, but to overcome them all. But we have to, like a hurdle, jump over each of these, or like a battle that we're fighting, it's a spiritual battle, we go through all of these different forces. So, we may feel that there is something pulling at us. We have a destiny to fulfill. In our minds, we want to do something in our life. There may be certain things that are unforeseen. The Bible says there are unforeseen occurrences that befall us all. So, when we came into this world, we had a plan for our life. Now, it might not have been exactly what we wanted. Perhaps when we came here, what we wanted to do was go and be with our Father in heaven, be with our soulmate, our family, and have everything wonderful. But probably the reason we came here is because we had things to learn. So, if you're going to get strong, you're going to have to work out. You're going to have to exert your muscles. So, that part's not fun, but you had a goal. You did it on purpose. You decided to start going to the gym. You knew it would be hard. Maybe you wanted to lose weight. You knew it was going to be hard, so you had to go on a diet. When we came here, we had certain deficiencies that we wanted to fix. We wanted to learn some certain things. So we knew. We had it all planned out. And so we came into the world at a specific point in time. It was all mapped out for us. We made that decision. Nobody comes here because, somebody's trying to punish you. Somebody's trying to hurt you or everything that you go through in life is something you chose before you even came here. So, I was just watching the fight the other night. I was thinking about this here a little bit ago. I was telling somebody else that I was talking to earlier today. But I thought it was so interesting. I wanted to see this fight between Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo Alvarez. And so I was excited about watching this and seeing who won and everything. And I was rooting for Billy Joe Saunders. Well, Billy Joe Saunders got hit really hard with an uppercut and hit him in the eye in the 8th round, I think. And it shattered the bone, the eye socket. And his eye was swelling up and he couldn't see out of it. And the doctors looked at it and they said he couldn't continue. So he had to quit because he literally could have lost his eye if he went forward. So he had to quit. And I remember as I was sitting there, I was real kind of disappointed and sad for him. But I was happy for Canelo because he deserves, he's a good guy. And so it was kind of a little mixed emotions and stuff. And I was thinking about an interview that I had seen with Billy Joe Saunders earlier that week. And he was being interviewed and he was saying, they thought, well, are you going to win? Do you think you can win? And he says, you know what? I know I'm going to win. Billy Joe says, I know I'm going to win. He says, well, how do you know that? He says, well, I spent my whole life dreaming about this since I was a little boy. I was like just a little child, playing around in the living room, punching the air and stuff like that. And he says, I knew that I was going to one day be world champion. I knew it. This is my destiny. He says, now let me ask you something. He says, I've come all this way to fulfill my dreams. I've never been beaten. 30 fights and have never been beaten. He said, do you think the Lord, he believes in God. He was a Christian. And he says, do you believe that God's going to bring me all this way and I'm going to lose? He says, I don't think so. He says, this is destiny. Well, then he goes in and he does real well. Everybody says he was doing real well in the fight. It was like he might have been winning. He might have been losing. It was a close fight. And people were saying, he might have been able to pull this off. But bam, 1 in a million shot. Well, I mean, of course, all the credit goes to Canelo because he's a good fighter and he knows how to, he knows how to place his punches just right. But do you think that punch that hit him right in a specific spot that would stop the fight, do you think that had to happen? Or was it some sort of destiny? It's really odd because Billy Joe Saunders believed that it was his destiny to win, and yet his fate was otherwise. Well, you see, sometimes the Lord has other plans. Sometimes we made plans even before we came here. Perhaps it wasn't his destiny to become the world champion, unified world champion. He was already a champion. He had belts and so forth, but perhaps that wasn't his destiny as much as he thought. Maybe his destiny was to learn how to be humble and to experience setbacks and overcome them. You see, there's a lot of stuff going on that we don't really understand. So, what really does it mean when we're born in a certain month? Does that affect who we are? Could we say, just by saying, oh, this person was born at the top of the wheel where the light is, he must be a light person. And this person's born at the bottom of the wheel, he must be a dark person. Oh, no. Remember, we've been going around this wheel for thousands of years. The Apostle Paul says it's a transmigratory, progressive course. And so for thousands of years, we've had many multiple lifetimes. And so we've been born in the bottom of the wheel. We've been born at the top of the wheel. Maybe when we were an animal, back when we were fish or birds, we were born in some particular month. We might not even known it. We didn't celebrate our birthday, but we were still born under those frequencies. And we had to go through those challenges. And we've gone through them 1,000 times. We went through them and we went through them until we learned, until we overcame them. And then we became a human. Well, it wasn't just one time around. We go around and around and around. And in this life, the Lord has made it and has worked it out that all of these forces and natures that belong to each of these animalistic natures, they have to be unified. They have to be harmonized. We have to experience them all. And the neat thing about that is that we get to experience these forces they all work together. In other words, we have to have wisdom, we have to have knowledge, we have to have love, we have to have fortune, we have to have all these different gifts. We have to have them all. We have to put them all together. And so we have to have them all in each lifetime. We have to be learning how to harmonize them. How to soften our judgment with mercy, how to temper our knowledge with wisdom. And so every one of us is going through. Now, we may be born starting off with certain vibrations and energies, but it doesn't take long, 1, 2, 3 years. Remember, the moon changes every, like few days. The moon's going like twice a month, it changes. So, and that rules your mood. The moon is over your emotions and your mood. So your mood's up and down, changing all the time. You're experiencing that, everybody, no matter what month you're born in. And then, of course, Mercury, which is your thoughts that are changing all the time, but not quite as much as your emotions. And then you have, Mars, and you have Venus, and you have all these things. Your love comes and goes. You have different opportunities for love, different opportunities for challenges. But probably what pulls them all together is Saturn, or that one that brings it all into form. And that changes for everyone every 28 years. So, if people understood astrology, they would be able to determine a lot better. They would have a lot better understanding about what's really going on when they read your horoscope, as they call it. But also, you have to remember that there's a lot of things that they've got screwed up. In modern astrology, they're using Uranus and Pluto, and I don't know where that comes from, because they have no influence on us because they're so far out. And the reason why we don't use them is because this is an integrated science. It's perfection. And they only used these 7 planets that had these influences that would be harmonized as a perfect. It's like having a harp and you have 10 strings. You put another string on there and it's going to be out of tune. You got to have 10. Well, then you can have the 6-string guitar, or you can have a 4-string mandolin. But whatever it is, it has to be tuned in such a way, depending on how many of those notes you have. Well, in life, we have these 7 notes. The same thing that you would experience with the colors. There are 7 colors in the rainbow, and there's the 7 notes. Fa, sol, la, ti, do, But it has to be those 7. You can't be making up stuff. And, of course, there's a lot more that has been kind of misunderstood. But I thought I'd show you guys just briefly a few famous people and show you what month they were born in. So here's Albert Einstein. He was born on March 14th. Here is Stephen Hawking. January. That's at the bottom of the wheel. Adolf Hitler, who was born in April. Wow, way up there in the top. Now, this is Charles Taze Russell. He started Jehovah's Witnesses, born in February. Well, that's down there at the bottom of the wheel where all that darkness is, right? And look, he dies on October 31st, Halloween night, in Pampa, Texas. Oh boy, he said, I guess he died somehow in a graveyard. I don't know if it's some kind of ritual or what, but he was a Freemason, and he started Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, this guy named Joseph Franklin Rutherford took over to run the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. And he was born down there at the bottom of the wheel too. A judge took over the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses, and he was born in November and died in January. Okay, there's Charles Taze Russell. Now, after Judge Rutherford, there was this guy named Nathan Knorr. Well, he was born in April. It's just all over the place. Then there was Frederick Franz, the next president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. He was born in September. Oh, here's Helen Blavatsky. August. Wow. That's the month I was born. Here's Sigmund Freud. May 6th. Top of the wheel. Charles Darwin. February. Down the bottom of the wheel. Vladimir Putin. October the 7th. Oh my goodness. Mao. Born in the December 26th. That's like the winter solstice. Vladimir Lenin, April the 22nd. Wow, Vladimir's April. Joseph Stalin, December the 18th. Wow. Charles Darwin, February. A lot of these guys are down there at the bottom of the wheel. Some of them aren't. Here's Aleister Crowley, the most evil, wicked man, October the 12th. Bottom of the wheel. Ellen G. White, who started Seventh-day Adventists, November 26th. Very down there in the dark. Well, up there in the top of the wheel, in the light, is Mary Baker Eddy, who started Christian Science. And I've always recommended that people go and get that book, Science and Health, by Mary Baker Eddy. It was beautiful. I believe that woman was a prophet. I really do. And you will get so much out of reading that book. It's very simple. It's not a very long book. It's a short book, but it's got so much in it. Now, here is another prophet in the latter days, Joseph Smith. Well, as you guys know, I do believe he was a prophet. Brilliant man. So many things he did, but he was born in December on the winter solstice. You know, a lot of these people, prophets or important people, were born on particular days, winter solstices or summer solstices or equinoxes or some other very important times of the year. Here's our beloved president, Donald Trump. He was born in June, way up there at the top of the wheel. Well, I want to show you, as an example, Donald Trump's astrological chart, because you see, it isn't just about where you were born, where you got started, but it has to do a lot with where Saturn is when you were born and as it transitions. So I'm going to show you that here in just a second. Also, I'm going to show you Adolf Hitler's chart. That's very interesting. Oh boy, there's old Biden. The non-fake president we've got. November. Kamala Harris, October. Jill's in June, and Barack Obama is in August. August the 4th. Wow. See, it doesn't always have to do with the month you were born, because we all got to go through these. But you got to examine the whole chart. Melania Trump, April. Look at that. She's up there in the top of the wheel. Bernie Sanders down there in the bottom, September the 8th. And Nancy Pelosi's in March? Okay. Yeah, well, we covered him. 1942. Anyway, Norman Vincent Peale, a man that I also believe was amazing, May 31st. President Reagan, down there in the bottom, February the 6th. One of the greatest presidents, I guess. Nancy Reagan's up there in July. I thought she was, a little off. John F. Kennedy, May 29th. And Jimmy Carter, he was the nice president. He's always nice, right down in October. And there's Karl Marx, that evil guy, born up there in May, right at the top of the wheel. A lot of these guys, well, it looks like a lot of them are born at the bottom, but here's Nikola Tesla up there in July. Whoa, buddy. Can't get higher than that, can you, up there on the top of the wheel? Well, I got a couple of these that have to do with Trump, and a lot of people saying these are great guys, they're so wonderful. I've been thinking about that. You know how John Trump got the Tesla papers, and what was Tesla working on? Some sort of a tower that would give you free energy? Is it the phone? Did he invent the internet? Did they take those papers and create CERN? Does it have to do with going back in time? Is that why Julian Assange looks like John Trump? They look identical. Did he come back and reincarnate as, well, I couldn't have, because it wouldn't have been enough years. Maybe he's just a clone. I don't know. But John G. Trump was in August 21st. Now that's interesting for me, because that's my birthday, August the 21st. So there's John Trump, Leo, the cusp of Leo and Virgo. But I do think it's interesting that John Trump got Tesla's papers. It looks like Trump is helping Elon Musk, because during the 4 years that Trump was president, Elon Musk shot up out of nowhere to being the richest man in the world. Now he wants to put a Neuralink in your brain, and he's got a company called Tesla. And John Trump is the one that got the Tesla papers, and that's a relative of Donald Trump, and now he's president. And by the way, there's a book written in 1890 something that says that Trump would be the last president. Did you know there's actually a book that was written that says that Elon Musk, I know, he wasn't even born yet. It says Elon Musk was going to lead a group of people to Mars and become the ruler of Mars. I know. This is crazy. What is this predictive program that we've been seeing? But it says Elon would lead humans on Mars. Legendary rocket scientist Werner von Braun predicted 1953 in a book. 1953? I don't even know if Elon Musk was alive then. I don't think he was. And that's a Nazi who wrote that book, Werner von Braun. Did the Nazis have something to do with predicting Elon Musk and Donald Trump? Due to the obvious name association and space lovers on Twitter, the passage resurfaced Thursday in an Entrepreneur.com article based on a December thread. Musk, who wants SpaceX rockets to someday send humans to colonize Mars, tweeted a poetic quote from Mel Brooks' 1974 movie, Young Frankenstein, in December. I'm sorry, guys, but this is starting to get too much for me. I'm wondering if we're literally being duped. You know, Trump just did the SFS, or the QFS, the Quantum Financial System, which is AI, which is tied to CERN. CERN's supposed to go back into time. It's supposed to have created the internet. Tesla was working on free energy beaming out from a radio signal coming out from a tower. John Trump gets a hold of those papers. German Nazis are predicting Trump would be the last president and Elon Musk would lead humans to Mars. This is just getting really crazy for me. And I'm also hearing in the news lately that Trump looks like he's completely got control of the Republican Party. And Graham just came out and said that the Republican Party is completely owned by Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is getting rid of all of his enemies. I guess that Cheney lady's gone. And he's putting in people that are going to be loyal to him. If you're not loyal to him, you're out. So it looks like Donald Trump will be president again, whether it's sooner or later. But if, at least he'll be probably elected president again. We're doing these audits on the machines. I guess, was it Wisconsin or Minnesota just came out and said they're going to do another audit. Arizona's finishing up their audit. They're proving that he actually won. So I don't know whether he's going to just, I think he's decided that he'll be able to do more, not actually being the president for a while, because while he was president, he had all this opposition. But since he's not president and he seems to be able to pull all the strings anyway, perhaps he feels like he's getting more done that way. So that's like 4 more years of being president. And then he gets elected and gets another 4 years. And oh my goodness, I don't know where that's going. But anyway, Julian Assange was born in July. This character here, I don't even know. What's that guy's name? Anyway, he's born in November. Newt Gingrich, a good guy. June. Rudy Giuliani, May 28th. Well, these guys all seem to be on the same page. And then there's Kanye West, who was also born in June. Well, Kanye West seems to be part of this whole Kardashian family. And now we've got Bruce Jenner, who's going to be governor of California. I guarantee it. I'm pretty sure. And so I don't know. It's really odd. Andrew Jackson, which, our president loves this guy. He's got a picture behind his desk. He was good for this country, March the 15th. And then there's our beloved John F. Kennedy, who was born on May the 29th. Very interesting. But I promised that I was going to show you guys a couple of people, Hitler and Trump. So that there is Adolf Hitler's planetary chart. So let me get it a little bit bigger so we can see it. But so his sun is in Aries. Okay. The moon, which is emotions, is down there in Sagittarius, whereas lust, that's what that is lust. That would fit a tyrannical dictator, right? His emotions being in lust. And Mars, the god of war, is in Aries. So his sun sign is in Aries. He's got war in Aries. He's got his mind, Mercury, in Aries. And Jupiter, his wisdom and his authority is in Sagittarius, lust. And Venus, which is love, is in Aries. Now, remember, he was celibate. He wouldn't even touch his wife. He was very dedicated. His Saturn is in Cancer. The rest of those aren't important. But, so, the structure, his entire form was up there in the heights. That's what probably gave him the ability to be such a shrewd dictator. But still, the moon, or his emotional state, is coming from Sagittarius, that lustful place, and Jupiter, his knowledge and his authority, came from that lustful place, right straight from Satan. And so, it's the whole chart that makes a man. And of course, it's not written in stone. It's written in the stars, but even the stars will change and transit. We can overcome all of these things. Now there's Donald Trump. Now look at how odd that chart is for Donald Trump. It seems to be all kind of lopsided. Everything's over there towards the top of the wheel from Gemini to Libra. And he does have his emotions down there in Sagittarius, which, means he may have a lot of emotional problems. But the sun is in Gemini. His moon is in Sagittarius. Mercury is in Cancer. Venus is in Cancer. Mars is in Leo. And his authority is in Libra. That's balanced. That control, the form that he takes, the Saturn, is in Cancer. So, I don't know. Interesting. Elon Musk. Now that looks a lot more balanced, doesn't it, on the surface? And he does seem to be a lot more calm. And I guess it takes quite a bit to become the richest man in the world. If you get to looking at this, it doesn't appear that we can tell if somebody's good or evil. But we can tell if they've been able to harmonize and balance some of these forces. Elon Musk's sun is in Cancer. His moon, or his emotions, is in Virgo. About ready to give birth, his emotions, I guess, to something. And nurturing. And his mind, his thoughts, Mercury, is in Cancer. He's very, very intelligent, like a genius. His love is in Gemini, the twins. Well, his anger and his ambition there in Mars is down in Aquarius. And his wisdom, Jupiter, is up there, or down there, in Scorpio. So, where he's got his mind is up there in Cancer, way up there in the light. But it seems like he's more or less being controlled by the lower fire of Scorpio. And then his form, his true form, is there in Gemini. Of course, this changes throughout your life. And the man's, 50-something or whatever. I don't know how old he is. So this is already changed. But this is the sign that he was born in. These are the signs and the planets that he was born in, and their juxtaposition to where he began in life. And so it's very telling. But we definitely cannot tell whether he's good or evil by looking at his chart. You might be able to to begin to imagine, though, that he would be a very intelligent person, that his emotions would be pretty balanced, that, his form would be pretty progressive and balanced, his structure of his life. Looking at this chart, I would say that he would be a very intelligent person, perhaps even a genius, and I would say his wisdom really is spent thinking about his passions and how he can accomplish his goals. I would say he's got a lot of control over his emotions, and he's progressing forward to his goals. Very structured, because his structure, his Saturn, is in Gemini, which is progressive. So overall, I can definitely see what is driving this man. Well, there's a lot of mysteries, but when we put this entire science together, we're going to do some more videos. We're going to narrow some of these things down. Right now, we're just trying to get the history of it, the overall structure of what this thing called astrology means and what it can be used for. But we're going to get into some very important things. I don't believe that this science we call astrology is primarily to be used to know your fortune, even though it would tell you that. But for those, it's kind of like prayer. Prayer is to be used to get things. Is that what it's for? We pray to ask for things we need, maybe, but not to consume it upon our lust. If we use it for that, it can backfire, and it can literally set us back a long time. We need to learn. We have to understand our Father in heaven knows everything we need before we ask. And we need to find that place where we receive everything in thanksgiving and ask for his will to be done on earth as it already is done in heaven, in the spirit, in our mind. Make it manifest on earth. But what do we really want? We want the things that are good and healthful. And so the same thing can be said for astrology. If you're trying to seek a fortune, that you are going to be the one who brings fortune in your life. You're the one who's going to gain wisdom. The chart is just the tools in order to see what the energies and the situation you're dealing with. You're the one that's got to harmonize it and overcome all of these hurdles. So we use it for that, to see where our weaknesses are, perhaps, and what we need to learn. But if we're using it only to seek for money and fortune and love, well, we've already defeated the purpose of these things. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go, guys. We'll get back to you tomorrow, and you guys have a great night. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good one.